All right, everyone. Welcome to today's live. I've got the nice calming blue background. I'm wearing my Rascals shirt that says one rep man, ready to go, caffeinated. Hope you all are having a great week and ready for another Ask Philip live Q&A. It's pretty funny. We leave up this post in our Facebook community for 2 weeks. And sometimes I have to nudge people to ask their questions like I did last night. I tagged everyone and said, hey, any questions? Because there were none. And then 4 came in. So we've got 4 awesome questions to answer today. And I might actually use those as a Q&A podcast drop. So when we get to that point, if it sounds like I'm talking on the podcast, I might be. But anyway, a few announcements before we get started. The first one is that episode 300 is coming up. I haven't recorded it yet, but it is just a couple weeks away. And I had posted this in the group under pinned post asking for ideas. I did get some great ideas. One idea from my friend Tony here. He said, and by the way, just so you guys know, Tony and I, we playfully insult each other all the time. If you're new to the group and you see him insulting me, it's totally cool. We know what we're doing. We're professionals at it at this point, and it's all good. So anyway, his question was, or he said, can we cover strength versus hypertrophy? And, I don't know if my episode's going to cover everything he wants, but episode 297 next Wednesday will be on that topic. I've recorded it. It's about 45 minutes long, so it's actually a little bit longer, but it was a lot of fun to make. And it covers my thoughts on the 2 different modalities and where they overlap and where they differ. And then Carol suggested a Q&A, so I think I'm going to take today's 4 questions and drop them as a Q&A. Unfortunately, that won't be for 300. And also, since you guys are watching this already, it will be redundant, but a lot of people don't necessarily aren't in the group or watching these live. So I think it'll be helpful. You guys know I have to promote the group sometimes, right? That's just how this works. And then we had a few other potential specific topics that are really solid, and I've added them to my list for future episodes, like metabolic adaptation and craving of food. And I reach out to some people directly as well. And then honestly, the one I like the most is this one here. Maybe the honor of the movie 300. I mean, I'm a nerd. I love those types of movies. 300 was awesome. She said, or he, who is this? Raymond, Bridget. You've got both names. Let me know. But talk about abs, mix some old school pioneers, golden era like Jack LaLanne. And then I tagged our friend Alan because he's mentioned Jack LaLanne before. So I don't know how much of that I'm going to take, but maybe kind of an analogy to 300 and Sparta and doing something fun with it will be what I do. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully not violate any copyrights in the process. But look, if you have any other ideas, throw them in there. If I don't use them for episode 300, it's going to get into the podcast one way or the other. Because I listen to you guys. I listen to my listeners and followers and make sure we do what you're looking for. All right. Secondly, what's on the podcast this week? We always like to do this just in case you missed it or you want to go target in on a specific topic. Again, 3 phenomenal episodes. And I actually did a bonus episode Saturday. Occasionally I do these totally off the cuff, just ideas I have to get off my head. They're not always very specific to a fat loss topic, for example. This one was really my ranting about how there's still a lot of coaches that their selling point is that they use macros or they create meal plans and stuff. And you don't need a coach for that stuff. There's so much technology and AI today that you could do things on your own. And I'm a coach. So why would I tell you that? Because I know the true value of a coach is not the information, not the basics, not the basic measurement, but the custom approach and the mindset and what is really holding you back and digging into that and figuring that out together. That's the value of a coach. And if that's what you need, I'm always here for you. All right. So the 3 episodes this week. I finally got out the sprinting episode I wanted to do. After talking to Brad Kearns, after digging into it, after starting to sprint myself, I did a VO2 max test as a baseline at the end of my bulk a few weeks ago. I'm going to be reporting on that in a few months when I do a follow-up. But I'm a big fan of sprinting. I've gotten a bunch of clients to sprint. We did a workshop on it in Physique University. If you missed it, you could still get the replay if you join. If you haven't joined Physique University, go to physique.witsandweights.com. It's a no-brainer for the cost. Open, transparent pricing, $87 a month, and you can kick the tires for 2 weeks, and you will get everything I describe in this demo video. So I just added a demo video that just opens the doors to what's in there. We just started monthly challenges as well. We're doing our first 10-day challenge. So there's a lot in there, but my point is we did a workshop. Every other week we do a coaching call that includes an educational part, and then I do a custom guide and you get that and you get the replay forever. So the episode though Monday was just on the benefits of sprinting. It wasn't the whole detailed protocol and how to train and everything like I did in the Physique University, but it's the benefits, which are still phenomenal to understand. And then I do give you the basic protocol at the end as well. So I'm not hiding that from you. Wednesday's episode is revisiting the concept of eating more to lose weight. But this is from the angle of when it is actually a true statement. Okay. Not the reverse dieting, fix your metabolism, you're under eating. So now if you eat enough, you're going to lose weight. It's not that, because there's a lot of myths there. It is really about food volume and some other tricks related to your expenditure and your macros that allow you to change the energy balance equation that makes losing fat easier. And then today's episode was another client case study. You guys wanted these, and I've done 2 so far. It is with Melanie. She's awesome. We're probably going to work together later this year, I'm hoping, for a muscle building phase. But this was about her fat loss phase, and she was pretty lean and low body weight to begin with. She's fairly petite, let's just say, and had already gone through previous, weight loss and fat loss cycles. And she wanted me to help her really optimize and dial in. And it was a lot of fun, and it was challenging, as a coach, to help somebody through this. But this is exactly what I mean, where a coach can help you figure out what works for you, even when you know all the things to do. She talks about that a lot, and she hammers home the message about patience and trusting the process. Of course, you have to have the right process for you, right? And they have to go hand in hand. So even my own clients, I'm sending this episode to them to remind them that there's a patience aspect to this, but fat loss will absolutely happen if you're in an energy deficit for long enough. The challenge is getting into that proper energy deficit by managing all the other things: training, stress, sleep, you name it, right? So that's what we talk about there. Sorry, I'm caffeinated, so a little bit hyper today. All right. And so with that, we're going to get into today's Q&A, which is always posted every other week by Alan in the group. It looks like this. The only thing that changes is the background. So when he posted on Monday, you've got, again, about 2 weeks to get your questions in. And we have 4 questions today. So the 4 questions for today's Q&A, we're going to start with Hannah's question. And she says, don't shoot me for this. Hey, no judgment here. What would you say? Actually, you know what? I'm gonna reset. Sorry. I want to put this in the order that they came in. Okay. Reset. Let's go back to the first true question here. So we have 4 questions today for Q&A. The first question is from Pam. And Pam, I had a great chat with you yesterday. It was so much fun. You guys, Pam was on the podcast a while back. I looked this up earlier. I want to say, I'm not going to quote an episode number. I'm going to look it up. If you go to podcast.witsandweights.com and search, you can find any episode. And she was on episode 190, Surprising Advice Women Over 50 Need for Strength, Health, and Longevity. She's awesome. She works with women over 40. I know this was over 50 in this episode, but she works with women over 40. So we're super aligned on this. She's in our group. She can provide advice. She's awesome. We're probably going to do some collaborations in the future. And she chimed in with a question today. She said, I'm loving Macro Factor. About that, I feel better on more protein and less carbs. Awesome. Good thing to know. What you feel better on is a huge, important variable. I'm over by 20 on protein and under by 20 on carbs. Thoughts? And okay, so yeah, my thoughts, a few things. And Pam, I know you probably know what I'm going to say here, but my first thing is that your body's response does matter more than the numbers. It's always the priority. Obviously, if you're getting no protein or no carbs, that's going to hold you back in many, many ways, but it should also present itself in your body's response. And then you got to know, well, what does that mean, right? And so for people listening who are newer to this, your body's response means how you perform in the gym, how your energy levels feel throughout the day, how you're sleeping and managing stress, and also your digestion, right? Sorry for that little brain burp. So your body's response, your biofeedback, how you're performing, how you're progressing, the adherence to the diet, are you satisfied? Are you full? All of those mean more than the actual numbers. And in this case, I would say that is absolutely the case, Pam, because 20 is like in the noise. To me, 20 grams is in the noise. We know that the range of protein that is perfectly adequate for most people is a minimum of 0.7 grams per pound of your body weight. And we could say target body weight just to keep it simple. And if you just want to be super safe, you aim up toward that 1 gram per pound, especially during fat loss. But if you're in that ballpark, 20 up, 20 down, 40 up, 40 down, not a big deal. The thing I care about with carbs is your peri-workout nutrition. And this is where I see people struggling. That's one thing that comes to mind, is that if your protein's too high, because you can't have too much protein. This is another question we're going to answer today about protein. You can never have too much protein. But if it's sacrificing carbs and you're, say, in fat loss and the carbs are fairly low to begin with, and then that causes you to get wiped in your workouts and you can't get enough reps and you can't hold on to as much muscle, all of that affects fat loss, because now you're going to potentially lose some lean mass where you wouldn't have if the carbs were a bit higher. But again, 20 grams of carbs usually isn't a game changer unless you're talking very, very slim numbers. Protein, on the other hand, we know it's satiating, it's muscle preserving. A lot of people feel better with it. You and I chatted about how many, many women of all ages, but especially over 40, are just not eating nearly enough protein they need. And just starting there is going to go a long way toward making you feel better, feel fuller, be able to eat more. And it might not always be more calories, it just might be more nutrients and more volume of food, eating more nutritious foods, being able to hit it in the gym, right? All of that. If you're training well, if you're recovering, if you're feeling good, there's no need to overthink it. So that's my opinion on that. And I would say, like, you know, if you're working with me as your coach, I will get down to a more optimal level of looking at how you feel and respond based on your check-in and saying, okay, we can experiment with some more protein, fewer carbs, or vice versa. So that's my answer to that. I hope that was helpful. All right, so let's go to the second question from Deanna, who says, I follow a workout regime of lifting 30 to 45 minutes every other day. Then I do 5 to 15 minutes of cardio after the workout. Okay, that's a small amount of cardio. And the opposite days, so your off days, your non-training days, let's say, non-lifting days, I do 20 to 30 minutes of cardio. I work out 6 days a week, rest 1 day. So, okay, so you work out 3 days, you do cardio 3 days, and you have a rest day. Good. My question is, I've heard people doing cardio between their sets on lifting days to keep their heart rate up for optimal results. If this is true, what are some recommendations, and where's a good rate to be at during my lifting days? Thank you. And my immediate curt response in the comments was, it's not true, and I don't even look at heart rate when lifting. But I'm happy to share my thoughts on the live. So again, it is not true that keeping your heart rate up is optimal for lifting results. Lifting is about strength. Your training is about strength. Yes, muscle too, but it's about training hard, progressing, getting all the reps, getting the mechanical tension, focusing on form, etc. Heart rate has nothing to do with your workout quality for resistance training. The tiny, tiny caveat that I'm going to throw in here is that cardiovascular conditioning, like being well conditioned, definitely benefits you as a lifter. But that does not mean you're adding in cardio between your sets. That's not how it's done. It is a slightly longer conditioning process. That's what you do outside your lifting sessions, or the lifting itself can serve that purpose. What do I mean? First, let's talk about the lifting between the sets that you said you're doing. I think that's actually a negative. I think that reduces strength output. It reduces performance in your lift. It makes you tired. It makes you fatigued for absolutely no reason. It saps your glycogen, all of those things. You've got to recover fully between sets. I suspect, tell me if I'm wrong, that you're probably not even taking that long of a break between sets, or maybe you are, but you're doing the cardio. Do you know what I mean? I know you asked about the question, so I think you're suggesting that you don't currently do that. My question is, how much are you resting between your sets? I would want you resting minimum 2 to 3 minutes for most lifts, and more like 5 minutes, up to 8 minutes, or even more for the big lifts like squats, like heavy squats where you're working in the 80% of your max or higher range. You've got to recover. That's priority number one. I also like walking around between sets because that helps you recover. And again, it has nothing to do with heart rate. That's just to get some extra steps in and to prevent you from getting bored and stiff and cold and all that. So I will put it this way. If you waited 20 minutes for your set, you'd probably get a little bit cold and not warmed up anymore. So there's a value in just not doing that, but that's a far cry from doing cardio between sets. If you want to combine cardio into your lifting, and there is some value in this in certain cases, for example, if you're trying to shorten your time and you're doing some bodybuilding stuff, you can use supersets. You can use drop sets. You can use myo reps. You can use rest pause sets. And that's going to jack your heart rate up. You can add a little bit of cardio after your session, like you've been doing 5 to 10 minutes, like sled work, loaded carries, walking on a treadmill. I wouldn't like run, for example. I wouldn't do like intense cardio right after your lifting session. I would keep it separate for your best results. I would do it hours after or on a training day. And when you do it on the same day, a rest day, or I would do it late on just upper body days. But here's the bigger thing, Deanna, is my philosophy is priority number 1 is lifting. Priority number 2 is walking. Priority number 3, supporting your lifting and your walking, is your diet. And those are the biggest factors toward building and preserving muscle and for fat loss. And then if you need a little extra boost, and I think it's good for other benefits, sprinting. So now I mentioned it a little bit earlier before I did the Q&A, that sprinting, which I just talked about on a recent episode of the podcast, go find it, 7 benefits of sprinting, is a game changer. It is highly recoverable. It doesn't impact your joints or tear your muscle or any of these other things that cardio can do. And there's always a caveat, well, if you enjoy cardio and that's why you do it, fine. Like if it's a sport, if it's fun, but just understand it's going to affect your lifting. So I know you asked about cardio between sets. That's a total myth. Don't do it. There's no need. It could be negative. I'm crystal clear on that. But as far as cardio in general, I also think a lot of people are doing too much of that, right? Too much cardio. If you're going to do steady state cardio, the rule of thumb is limit it to about half the time that you lift. But if it's not something you enjoy, the best form of cardio is going to be walking, combined with some sprinting. And any play that you do, if you play basketball or you play pickleball or whatever, that's great. Do that. That's fun. There's an element to that. But don't feel like you're obligated to do cardio. So I know you didn't ask that question that way, and I answered multiple questions, but I just wanted to share my thoughts. All right. So the third question we have for today is from Hannah. And Hannah, I'm sorry to tease earlier, like I was going to answer this first. So question number 3. What would you say to those who only lift because it's good for you? Now, she doesn't have it in quotes, but I'm putting quotes myself around that. Right now, maybe it will change later. I want to build and maintain muscle, but I don't love lifting and I'm not motivated to hit PRs. With this in mind, how should I structure my workouts and what does this mean for my lifelong fitness? And some other folks chimed in. You guys can check out the Facebook group to see those. But then I said in the comments, I'd say we need to find you a more process-oriented motivation and wins to naturally motivate you. What don't you love about lifting? And then you said, it's probably that I'm a noob and intimidated by it and still want the cardio high, LOL. I'll have to furnish my own home gym because I'm in a rural area, not able to get to a gym. So I need to pull the trigger and get myself a barbell. I've just been accumulating dumbbells. Is there a point of maintaining muscle that can be done from home? I got starting strength. Oh, good for you. And I'm going through it. So I guess the investment, the intimidation, not wanting to have to keep going up and up, if that makes sense. So take a deep breath. I get the sense that there's a little bit of overwhelm here. And I love that you're taking action, for one. Huge win there. And I also understand when you get into any new skill, it can be super overwhelming because there's a lot of steps you're putting in place. There's a foundation. I just had a client who started with me, and he's buying the equipment. He's getting the squat shoes. He's learning form. It's like a lot of things. And it helps that he has me as a coach because then I can break it down one by one. And that's what I think we want to do, is understand that you haven't even started. And so you haven't even gotten result number 1. Result number 1 being like your first week of progressing the squat twice and seeing how that feels. The identity that you don't love lifting, we can do some reframing on that for sure, right? Like when you said, I'll have to furnish my own gym, I would say, I get to furnish my own gym. That's exciting. You said, I'm not able to get to a gym, so I need to pull the trigger, get myself a barbell. Ooh, I get to get a barbell that's going to fit at home, which is going to unlock like tons of gains going forward. And again, I'm not belittling it. I'm not in denial here. I'm just a big fan of having a more optimism lens on this stuff, especially if you haven't even done it yet. So my first thought is you don't have to love it right now. You just have to do it. It's like, I don't want to say it's like brushing your teeth because you never really get to like brushing your teeth. So that's a terrible example, but you don't have to love it. You just have to do it. And when you do it, I think you're going to love it. Lifting is about more than PRs too. That's the other thing, is PRs can be fleeting the more advanced you get. Think about all the things lifting gets you and what your true why is. Why are you doing this? Why are you listening to me? Why are you listening to my suggestion to do starting strength? Right? It's because you're trying to maintain function and strength and independence. And then there's a whole list of reasons you personally want to do this. Lean into those and say, ooh, I get to lift with a barbell and get super strong. And as a result, I'm going to get X, Y, Z that I would not have if I didn't do this. The other thing is finding ways to enjoy it. So if you don't, quote unquote, love it, and I see why you didn't. You said again, you're a noob, you're intimidated, da da da. You haven't even started. So I would just throw away that statement altogether. And rather than saying you don't love it, say, I don't know yet what it's going to be like. This is exciting. This is new territory. I'm really looking forward to what it's going to feel like to lift and working on loving it. You see what I said, where I'm going? And I think it starts with taking the action, but also the process-oriented wins along the way. So when you get started with starting strength, you got your barbell. What are you going to do? You're going to squat. That's the first lift. Well, in starting strength or on YouTube videos or watching my content, you'll learn a lot about form and you'll try it out and you're going to be clumsy and you're not going to get it right. And if you send us a form check in the group, or if I was coaching you and sent me a form check, I'm going to find a whole mess of things that are going to need to be improved. And to me, that's exciting. That's exciting because you have a gap that you can close from here to there, and closing that gap is the process. And that process itself can be a lot of fun because there's wins galore throughout that process. When you improve your form from session to session and focus on just one thing at a time, each one of those, wow, I just did that. And now I can lift a little more. And now I feel a little better. Now my knees are feeling right. My hips are feeling good. And think about all the reasons that you're doing this. Again, going back to what we said before, right? In the short term and the long term, it's okay. But break it down to the process, being consistent and showing up 3 days a week, improving your form, getting form checks, reaching out to our community or whatever communities you're in, or if you have a coach or you need a coach, reaching out for accountability and support. Then how do you feel after the workout? Then how do you feel the next day? One of the surprises people get from a strength-oriented program is they're sore after day one, maybe day two, and then they're not sore anymore. They're like, whoa, this is very different. Or that they feel very rested and recovered. Even though it's hard to hit a heavy weight, they've got all this, I don't want to call it relaxation, but there's a sense of you're not beat up like you are with cardio style classic workouts. So there's a lot of ways to make it enjoyable that way, focusing on the process. The other thing is, how can you make it enjoyable from a superficial standpoint, using music, listening to a podcast, setting micro goals within the workout that you can go after. So many things, like get creative. It's fun even when you're setting up your gym, just to like get familiar with the parts of the equipment, what they're called. Sometimes I like to shop for different attachments. What can I use with my power rack? And, what are the variations, blah, blah, blah. Now, again, I don't want you to get overwhelmed, but like, there's nothing but positive here to get from this process that you're going to get, and you haven't even started. So you don't have to love it. You just have to do it. Okay. And I'm not even getting into training in specific like that. Just making lifting sustainable and efficient and not worrying about chasing PRs, but worrying about but getting to love the process will get you to love it, in my opinion. Let me know if that helps. If you need more help with the mindset stuff, let me know. And by the way, I'll be recording a podcast next week with Adam Badger on the Talkin' Fit podcast, or he has a Talkin' Fit podcast. He had me on to talk about bulking, and we are going to each cover a different angle. Oh no, we're not going to cover a different angle. That's a different thing. I'm just having him on my podcast, and we're going to talk about mindset. And so if there's something specific here that makes sense for me to bring up with him, I can. Anyway, I think I've talked enough about that. I'm going to move on to the next question, but I hope that helps, Hannah. Okay. Joy. All right. I like this one. This is a triggering one because it speaks to misinformation in the industry, and also how being, I'll say, stubborn and not being open-minded to the truth, frankly, is going to hold you back. And I feel sad for these people. And I hope, Joy, that you can, I don't know, somehow get this information to this person. And if she's watching this video, I might have already lost her the way I just said that. So you might want to take a clip or something. Anyway, the question was, recently spoke to someone who told me they can't eat a lot of protein because they're on high blood pressure meds. She's struggling with fat loss. suggestions for her. And then I said, I need a lot more detail on this because I've never heard of blood pressure meds preventing someone from eating higher protein. That is true. That effectively, to answer your question, that is a myth. That's not a thing. Protein is not a problem for anybody unless you already have kidney issues. And you said here, oh, and I said, maybe you can send them the link to this group to ask the question and provide more context. That'd be great. That'd be great. Hopefully she's open to learning and not taking my little bit of sarcasm in the negative way, but we'll see. Either way, my advice would be that protein is a much smaller variable than strength training, walking, calorie deficit, etc. So, Joy, the first thing that comes to mind is she should be eating protein and not using that as an excuse because it's not a real thing. And I hope she's talked to a doctor. And if a doctor told her that, then I would just listen to the doctor because I'm not a medical expert. However, I would get my kidney labs and urine tests done so that she could be of peace of mind that they're good. And then guess what? Eat some protein for a while at the proper level to support body composition and training activity, and take those again, and then come back to us and let us know. I guarantee they're going to be fine. I guarantee it. Well, I shouldn't say I guarantee it, but I am highly, highly confident that they will be fine. Anyway, if I were to answer the question, what do you do if you can't eat that much protein? I would say that strength training is actually far more important than the protein anyway. And I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, what? Like you're telling me to eat protein all the time. Well, yes, if you want the best results, you have to eat a lot of protein. Not a lot, but more than most people eat. It still only amounts to like 25% of your calories, but it's far more than the average person eats. So strength training is absolutely the top thing. And then I included walking in a calorie deficit, but I would actually put the calorie deficit second if we're talking fat loss. That's the next huge important thing. And then keeping the stress down and moving the right way, which would be a lot of walking generally. Maybe a little sprinting like I mentioned before, but walking. Now, I don't know what level of protein is she eating? Is it, half her body weight? That's kind of getting close to what is okay. So it's a little suboptimal. Or is it like 0.3 her body weight in grams? And then you're talking about abysmally low protein. And that's where I kind of said later in a comment that I feel sad for her because as we age, especially women, you're going to need that protein to stave off muscle loss. Even if you're training, there's going to be some muscle loss without sufficient amino acids or she shouldn't be dieting, right? Just don't be dieting, stay fully energized, get the calories in and train that way and try to get slow body recomposition over time. I did look into this. And when it comes to blood pressure medications, it seems that there is no link between these and high protein at all. Okay. I did see that sometimes it affects your sodium potassium balance, in which case you've got to watch specifically the foods you eat and the amount of electrolytes and stuff, but that has nothing to do with protein. Don't be eating, sausage and bacon, right? That's not protein, right? That's protein with fat, with nitrates, with sodium. That's something else, right? We know the benefits of protein. I'm not going to hammer home that right now. But again, if she won't eat the protein, strength training is number one. The calorie deficit for fat loss is number two. A fiber-rich whole food diet will support satiety. Tracking, right? Tracking her calories. Is she doing any of this stuff, Joy? I mean, she's not doing all that stuff. The pillars are going to be important regardless of whether she's eating a lot of protein. You did say one more comment. You said she disclosed me she's on blood pressure meds for the last 10 years. She's only lost 3 pounds since November. Told her to eat more protein to get fuller. Yeah. I mean, there's a famous quote, those convinced against their will are of the same opinion still. I hope she's open to change. I don't know if you're going to share this with her or paraphrase it for her or hook me up with her, but I think taking the labs before and after is a great way to prove to herself whether it's true or not. Because if a doctor didn't actually say that, it's just her own anecdote and opinion and assumptions. From what? I don't know. I would love to see if there's some studies she's concerned about, some links, whatever. Anyway, I went a little bit negative on that, only because it bothers me because I feel like she's missing out. And anybody listening to this, I want to give you that fair warning that don't believe everything you read or hear. And I don't even know if she did. I think potentially because she's a nurse and thinks from that's true. I'm not sure. Okay, enough rambling. Those are the 4 really solid questions today that I wanted to get to. Hope you guys love the answers, or if you have follow-up, throw them below, whether you're on YouTube or in the Facebook group. If you're watching on YouTube, come join us in the group so you can get a lot more where this came from. And like and love the video, and I'll see you next time. So go ahead and post your questions next week for the next Ask Q&A, and have a great weekend. Stay strong. Go out there and lift. Keep supporting the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you next time.